After being briefed on the latest Charter Review Committee's recommended changes to the city charter during a public workshop held on July 28th, commissioners gave the go-ahead for all 7 to be voted on by city residents. Still up in the air is whether voters should decide as part of a special election called in 2025 or during the general election held in 2026. During the workshop, it was confirmed that only implementing the 50% plus 1 rule would be impacted by this decision. If approved in 2025, it would begin applying to candidates running for office in the 2026 election. If approved in 2026, it wouldn't take effect until the 2028 election. Lingering questions will be discussed during the first public reading of draft ballot language, currently scheduled to take place during the City Commission's next regular meeting at 6:30 p.m. Tuesday, August 12th. Commissioners would then consider final approval as part of a second public reading on August 26th. In this video, we'll show you commissioner comments made during their July 28th public workshop on this subject. If you're interested in getting up to speed on the Charter Review Committee's recommendation-making process, as well as the pros and cons they laid out for each ballot item, please see the video linked in the description.
I think the mayor's term should be 4 years, not 2.
You know, that's one of the most greatly debated topics in New Smyrna as far back as I can remember. And as far as I can tell, it's 50-50, you know. The idea is that you can throw out a majority every 2 years if they're that bad, if they're that terrible. As far as I know, it's never happened. Certainly, it might have happened by coincidence if it did. But the city has never been in such peril that they threw out a majority.
I don't really know why we're at a 2-year mayor term when all these other cities are at 4 years. And I've been out there in the weeds trying to campaign, and it's exhausting. So it's not about which mayor is up here, because that is going to cycle out and in, but it's the work they have to do when the rest of us don't do that. And if you sit up here, every election cycle, we hear things up here, and this isn't a negative thing, but they can campaign from up here, and I hear it, and sometimes it's frustrating. And I hear things that they're pitching to that normally they wouldn't do that, and I don't like that. That's annoying to me when they cater to special interest groups, and I'd rather us all be up here and do our jobs and do what's best for 32,000 people and not for a few special interest groups. So that hasn't been mentioned, but it does take that element out of it if we're all on a 4-year process.
What the general conventional wisdom in an election is, you're going to run a primary, you're going to get donations. You win in the primary, you go to the general, you're going to now start over again and ask for a lot more money and time from those few people who are willing to do that. And when I say few people, when you look at the population of voters of close to 20,000, and you look at the donation list and of who actually contributed to a campaign, it's very, very small as a percentage. Well under 1% of the population actually gets involved enough to donate time or money in a campaign. And it's a brutal thing to have to ask people who've already given you money to ask for more money. They're usually very willing. But it's a terribly wasteful thing. It also requires more money because so few people get involved. You're asking more money from fewer people. Then people start saying, well, look at this person, look at that person. They donated so much money. They must be their own special interest in a way. So there's a lot of reasons why it's not necessary to do that.
I think the city clerk should report into the city manager. That seems to make sense to me.
Mr. Cowper is here. He oversees. He has great process improvements. He has great objectives for each of his employees. We brought him in, we gave them a raise because they deserve it, and he does a fabulous job with the budgets, and I can't say enough, and he will do a fabulous job overseeing our city clerk.
What if next week Volusia County decided to pay their chair and their council people $5 a week? Well, we'd have to take 75% of that, wouldn't we? So we really want to think about putting something concrete, a procedure, or any of that into the charter.
The people of Volusia County voted back in 2002 for the county council chair to be paid 60% of the state allowed salary, and the councilmen were paid 50% of that salary. So it is tied to the state numbers. So in essence, that's what this would be also, is tied to that.
The commission salary, boy, is that not the third rail? That's the third rail, giving us a raise. You know, I have a thought on that. The people will decide that. It is unlikely that the people will vote for the raise. It's just the nature of the job. We don't get this job for the money, that's certain. And whatever raise, if the voters are inclined to give us a raise, it's not that big of a raise, it's not a big difference maker. My idea of talking about a raise is you make the job at a competitive rate where you can actually attract a lot of more people who can actually serve. I'm not saying we should do that, but I'm just saying if you wanted to get into a discussion about pay for one of these jobs, open it up so people can actually live and support themselves on a livable salary supporting a family. Now, historically, that has never happened, but I will tell you this. If you did that, you would then see a lot of different people able to run in an election to try to serve their city. But in terms of this one, the residents, the citizens will decide that. And if history is any judgment on that, they will very likely decline it.
If our salaries are X and the citizens want to give us a little raise, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine too. I mean, when I decided to run for office, the first thing I didn't ask myself was, how much does it pay? I mean, to be honest with you, if part of the compensation was a company or a city car and our salary got cut in half, that would be fine with me. You know what I mean? I mean, we take a lot of time traveling to different places, talking to different people, and that is a big part of what I do. And it you know, puts a lot of mileage on your bod and your car.
I just want to go on record that for almost 14 years, I had no idea we get reimbursed for mileage, so I wonder if that's retroactive. I had no idea. Thank you. That's all, man.
All right, we give McGurk a car. At the tail end here, I must differ from my colleague, Mr. McGurk. I am in it for the money. $6.11 an hour based on the time I put in, so I'm just thrilled with that. And so, Brian, if you hang around a long time, you'll get that. On the raise, it may not attract another person. We've heard a variety of people opine about that. Where I was it may not attract anybody, but it might do something to not eliminate somebody that was considering it that was of a younger age, that is maybe very involved in things in addition to work, said, where will I spend my extra time? I would go into, let me go into this work with the city. So I thought maybe it could be an incentive to attract those that had ruled it out. Certainly not as it would not eliminate people, but it might attract people.
Speaking about the salaries, it is important that if that goes on the ballot, that people know what that is, because if you read social media, they think, oh my goodness, look at that raise. And they already think we make 100,000 a year. You know, they don't realize we make 18,000 or whatever that number was. I don't even know. I bring home, 600 and something every 2 weeks. So whatever that equates, you know, it's insignificant. We're not up here for that. I've made it known that I'm not rerunning. So I'm going to be voting on this, and it doesn't impact me. But it does impact the next person that's sitting in the seat. And I assure you, we spend hours and hours. I've heard a couple of people say, oh, you're just part-time. You know, that $18,000 you guys make is adequate for a part-time wage. No, it's not. And we need to attract good, qualified people. And that is important. And none of us are up here for the money. But it's a nice token to say, hey, we're taking us out of that equation. We don't vote on our own raise. We're tying it to something that allows us to take that out.
It's still $6.11 an hour for me, and I assure you I'm worth every penny of that. But we won't belabor it. As Jason said, we want to put it, the idea from that I got from Mr. Billings' work and the committee's work was put it in the hands of the residents. Let the residents decide. And now it's in the commission's hands. And so the idea was let the residents decide, and that therefore putting in the charter does allow that to get modified.
I am distressed from historic going from mandatory to encouraged, because I think that deprives the the owners around that property of their property rights.
I enjoy the historic preservation, arts and culture added to the charter. You got to be careful. The charter is not necessarily where a lot of that is supposed to be, but we did add that. We added that 5 years ago, and I think that without doing too much of it, it has a great place in the heart of the charter to always remind those after us the direction that we wanted the city to be in and go in the future.
The historic preservation, something new came up from that too. When that was developed a few years ago, the protection was put in that it was going to be a local overlay, and there was a 90% pushback on that. The property owner rights and the property owners didn't want that. So there's another change that needed to be done.
Looking ahead, commissioners will hear a first public reading of ballot language drafted by the City Attorney's Office during their next regular meeting at 6:30 p.m. Tuesday, August 12th. All are invited to speak directly to commissioners for up to 3 minutes each when the floor opens for public participation shortly after the meeting begins in the James W. Hathaway Commission Chambers at 214 Sams Avenue. We hope to see you there.